YNW Melly's bond hearing just exploded into a full-blown showdown as the judge went off on him and his legal team right in the middle of court.
No, ma'am, I didn't ask for it. I don't understand your continued behavior, speaking out of turn, yelling at someone that's not true.
Did this heated clash destroy Melly's chances at freedom after 6 years locked up? With tensions at a boiling point and the death penalty hanging over his head, this explosive moment could change everything for the Florida rapper. The truth behind this courtroom drama is wild, so let's get into it. The high-stakes bail hearing showdown. Before we get into all the tea about what went down in that courtroom, let's keep it a buck about who YNW Melly really is. Born Jamel Maurice Demons, this young rapper has been locked up since February 2019. He's facing some heavy charges. 2 counts of first-degree murder for allegedly taking out his homies Anthony Williams, YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., YNW Juvie, back in October 2018. The DA's office claims that Melly and his boy Cortland Henry, YNW Bortland, bodied Williams and Thomas inside a whip in Miramar, Florida, then tried to play it off like it was a drive-by. His first trial hit a brick wall in July 2023 when the jury couldn't make up their minds. Now with round 2 scheduled for September 10th, 2025, Melly's legal squad has been grinding to get him out on bail before the next court date pops off. This bail hearing we're breaking down represents Melly's second shot at pretrial release since the mistrial. According to the paperwork, his defense team has been cooking up this motion since November 2024, arguing that mad things have changed since he first got booked. Let's break down what really popped off in that courtroom on May 6, 2025. The hearing kicked off with Judge David Porter flipping through the previous motions related to Melly's case. The energy was tense AF as both sides geared up to shoot their shot. Melly's defense squad, including attorneys Mr. Benjamin and Miss Liberty, came with a bold strategy to convince the judge to let their client touch road.
This is on top and bottom. Page 4. This is David Porter versus Jamel Demons, 19-1872 CF10A, 23-10594 CF10A. Ms. Collins, Mr. Griffith, Mr. Silvershine present for the state. Dr. Seeley, Mr. Adelson, Mr. Benjamin.
Things got spicy when the defense tried to bring in testimony from an expert witness, Dr. Cuthbert, who they'd apparently just put on the team. The prosecution wasn't having it though and immediately objected, saying they didn't get enough notice about this witness or any paperwork she might have cooked up.
She was noticed in state less than 36 hours ago. She's going to be testifying as an expert. We don't know what documents she's relying upon. We don't know what materials she's able to review. We provide no reports in order to know the substance of the testimony.
The judge sided with the prosecution and shut down Dr. Cuthbert's testimony. This L forced the defense to rely on straight legal arguments instead of expert testimony, completely changing their game plan for the hearing. A major beef during the proceedings was about suppressed evidence. Earlier in the case, Judge John Murphy had dropped an order on December 21, 2023, throwing out certain evidence that was collected by violating Melly's constitutional rights. The defense was arguing that this suppressed evidence shouldn't be allowed in the bail hearing, while the prosecution was trying to keep it in play.
I wouldn't call it an exclusionary rule.
Well, that's a draft.
I'm saying it should not be considered by the court because the court, the law of this case is it was suppressed and it cannot be used by the state in any way.
After a heated back and forth, Judge Porter gave the W to the defense, ruling that he wouldn't consider evidence that Judge Murphy had previously thrown out. This was a major win for Melly's squad, as it meant certain potentially damaging evidence wouldn't factor into the bail decision. The hearing then went deep into the weeds about exactly which evidence had been suppressed. They broke down various warrants related to Melly's social media accounts, cell phone records, and other digital data. The prosecution and defense spent mad time clarifying which specific pieces of evidence were still fair game and which were now off limits due to the suppression order. One of the biggest revelations during this exchange was that the cell site location information from October 26, 2018, the day of the alleged murders, was still in play. This meant this potentially incriminating evidence could still be considered by the judge when deciding whether to grant bail.
Cell site location information
Remains
from
active.
October 26, 2018. None of that was
Correct.
After clearing that up, both sides threw down their arguments about the proof evident presumption great standard that applies in bail hearings for capital cases like Melly's. Under Florida law, if the evidence of guilt is strong, proof evident, and the presumption of guilt is great, the defendant can be held without bail. However, even if those standards are met, the judge still has the juice to grant bail under special circumstances. The prosecution argued that even with the suppressed evidence off the table, they still had a strong case against Melly. They pointed to the remaining admissible evidence, particularly the cell tower location data, ballistics, and contradictions in statements made by co-defendant Cortland Henry.
Certainly, Judge, and that's the case law provided to the court. There's actually a presumption of correctness as to Judge Murphy's order, that there was proof evident presumption great. So really what the court is considering now is just effectively has that suppressed evidence that the court is now considering changed the state's position where proof evidence is no longer present. We believe that proof evidence still remains strongly present because, as the court was noting, all the information from the day of the homicide remains.
The defense clapped back with several key arguments. First, they emphasized that the jury in the first trial couldn't reach a unanimous verdict, suggesting that the evidence wasn't as strong as the prosecution was claiming. They also put Detective Mark Moretti on blast, alleging that he had tried to suborn perjury. Plus, they brought up new search warrants that had been obtained after Judge Murphy's suppression order, suggesting the prosecution was playing dirty.
For the purposes of the proof evidence presumption great judgment, I have some factors. I know Ms. Liberty has a couple. If I could, Judge, I believe that the rulings by Judge Murphy, that starting with the testimony of Michelle Boutros, which the Judge Murphy ordered the state that when she testifies, they cannot cross-examine her in any further proceedings. The state appealed it on a motion, on an appeal, a writ of some sort, I forgot which one. And that was, and I attached it to my supplement, the fourth denied their seeking relief on that issue.
The defense then laid out their proposed conditions for Melly's release. They suggested a minimal monetary bond with several conditions. Melly would stay at a new crib, no straps allowed, he'd rock a GPS ankle monitor, and would have 24-hour security watching him. They argued these conditions would keep the public safe, guarantee Melly shows up for court, and maintain the integrity of the judicial process.
So, the conditions in the jail aren't good. He's been there 6 years, Judge. The Constitution says everybody gets the presumption of innocence. 6 years. We're going now past 6 years. He has substantial ties to the community. His mom, his grandma, his sister, his brother, his friends, his grandpa. They're all here supporting him. The special conditions are there, and that's what we get out of the different case law. That proof evident great, that's one thing. You go to the second. Are there special conditions that we can put in place to protect those three things? Make sure he's present here.
The prosecution wasn't buying it, though. They emphasized how serious the charges were, 2 counts of first-degree murder, and also brought up witness tampering allegations against Melly. They claimed the risk of flight was mad high given the potential death penalty, noting that many countries wouldn't send him back if he was facing capital punishment.
The concern is if he goes somewhere where he cannot be returned. As the court has repeatedly pointed out, Mr. Demmons is charged with the death penalty. Many countries in the world will not extradite back to the United States if they are facing the death penalty here.
The defense team fired back at these concerns by emphasizing that the proposed security measures would make it virtually impossible for Melly to bounce. They also noted that his record label was ready to put up the paper for any monetary bond that might be imposed.
So, as to your comment, in light of my client's popularity, we opted not to put somebody on to give you the address of where he'd be living at. We were going to proffer, I would give that in camera as far as where he'd live at. He would be residing with his sister and with his brother. Give you the address. We would have the security detail. All of that can be given to you in camera. As far as the second amount, his record label would be if there was a monetary bond in place. His record label is agreeing to put the monetary bond up for him. so the financials would be covered because it would be coming from his record label.
As the hearing wrapped, Judge Porter thanked both sides for their presentations and said he'd take time to consider all arguments before dropping his decision on Melly's bail request. He didn't say when exactly he'd make the call, leaving both Melly's team and the prosecution on read. The outcome of this hearing has had social media platforms buzzing. Reports hit the timeline on May 8, 2025, suggesting that Melly had secured a $500,000 bond for one of 6 charges against him. But this wouldn't get him out since he'd need bonds for all charges to walk. According to XXL magazine, the judge is expected to rule on the complete bail request in the coming days. As of this recording, fans and legal observers are on pins and needles waiting to see if YNW Melly will finally touch freedom after 6 years on lock, or if he'll stay caged until his retrial in September. This bail hearing is just one chapter in the complicated legal saga that's been following YNW Melly for years. The stakes couldn't be higher: temporary freedom before trial or continued lockup until September, with the ultimate threat of the death penalty still hanging over his head. The legal backstory and street beefs. YNW. Melly's legal troubles go way further back than many of his fans might realize. While his current bid stems from the 2018 double murder charges, Melly's history with the law started when he was just a young bull. At only 16 years old, in October 2015, Melly caught a case for shooting near Vero Beach High School in Florida. According to the reports, he let off shots at 3 students near the school grounds. Luckily, nobody caught a bullet, but young Jamel Demons was hit with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of discharging a firearm in public.
Yeah, I had went to jail for the school shooting thing I did.
School shooting thing?
Yeah, I was shooting by the school.
Melly was convicted and did about a year in juvie, where he got his GED. This early incident came back to haunt him during his come-up, with an interrogation video from the arrest surfacing in 2023 that showed a tense exchange between young Melly and the boys in blue. In a 2019 interview, Melly broke down the situation behind the school shooting incident, describing a scenario involving a strap he had brought to school that was allegedly taken by someone else.
Yeah, and then it was just I thought the nigga had my gun, you know what I'm saying? I had brought it to school one day, then he told that I had that bitch at school, and then he fought. I guess he had his homeboys follow me. And I guess when I went to the office to get searched, they came back, they doubled back and had the pistol. I ain't never paid attention to it because I was still trying to find out who the fuck had my shit till one day I found out they had my shit. And the next day I had to bust at them boys for that.
Wow.
After getting out of juvie, Melly kept catching cases. In 2017, he violated probation and had to sit down for several months. On June 30th, 2018, he got pinched in Fort Myers, Florida for weed possession, having a strap as a convicted felon, and drug paraphernalia. A few months later, on January 3rd, 2019, the cops scooped him up again in Fort Myers for having some gas on him. But these minor charges ain't nothing compared to what's had him locked down for the past 6 years. On February 13th, 2019, Melly turned himself in after catching 2 counts of first-degree murder for the October 26, 2018 deaths of Anthony Williams, YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., YNW Juvie. The alleged scenario around these murders has been under the microscope. According to the DA's office, Melly and Cortland Henry, YNW Bortland, bodied Williams and Thomas inside a Jeep SUV and then staged the scene to make it look like they caught strays in a drive-by. They allegedly drove around with the bodies in the whip before taking them to the hospital, where they fed the authorities a cap story. Forensic evidence, including cell phone tracking data, ballistics analysis, and blood spatter patterns, was the foundation of the prosecution's case. The prosecution has maintained that the evidence clearly shows that the shots came from inside the car, contradicting the drive-by narrative the defendants were pushing. The state's theory about why it all went down has evolved over time, but has often centered on gang ties. Prosecutors have claimed that Melly is affiliated with the G-Shine Bloods and that the murders somehow benefited the set. During the first trial, gang expert Danny Polo testified about blood lingo in Melly's text messages and suggested that the rapper had been recruited by gang members. Text messages shown in court revealed beef between Melly and Sack Chaser in the months before the murders. In August 2018, about 2 months before the killings, Melly allegedly asked his mom for a strap amid conflicts with Sack Chaser's family. Other messages suggested internal drama within the YNW crew over credit for their rising success, with Sack Chaser apparently feeling pushed to the side despite being an original member. One especially damning piece of evidence the prosecution brought up was an Instagram message where Melly allegedly wrote, "I did that, shh," to someone named Peasy Gambino after the murders. The defense contested this evidence, arguing that the spelling was off compared to how Melly usually types. The case against Melly has been complicated by numerous legal disputes and drama. One of the biggest developments came in December 2023, when Judge John Murphy dropped an order suppressing certain evidence that had been obtained by violating Melly's constitutional rights. As we learned during the May 6, 2025 bail hearing, this suppression order mainly affected evidence from outside the immediate time frame of the murders, particularly info that might have been used to establish gang connections or other alleged motives. The legal proceedings took another wild turn when, in October 2023, prosecutor Christine Bradley got removed from the case due to allegations that she had hidden information about Detective Mark Moretti's credibility. According to testimony referenced during the bail hearing, a witness named Michelle Boutros allegedly saw Detective Moretti trying to suborn perjury, raising serious questions about whether the investigation was on the up and up. Adding to the drama, Melly's defense team discovered in late April 2025 that the prosecution had gotten new search warrants for much of the same material that had been suppressed by Judge Murphy's order. These warrants, allegedly signed by a different judge, Judge Bober, in March 2024, hadn't been shown to the defense until just days before the bail hearing. The defense called this forum shopping and argued that it represented serious misconduct by the prosecution.
Concerning this case that appears was in their possession for at least a year, if not longer. And as you're looking at those, at the defendant's exhibit and positive one, okay. I want you to know that if you look at the docket sheet, it took us 4 hours to organize the warrants because they were commingled. Warrant number 1 had pages from warrant number 2 or 3. And it literally took Mr. Benjamin's judicial assistant, like promoter, 4 hours to commingle all those pages because originally they came in so convoluted.
The first trial, which kicked off in June 2023, ultimately ended in a mistrial on July 22, 2023, after the jury couldn't reach a unanimous verdict. According to later reports, the jury was split 9-3 in favor of manslaughter convictions, rather than the first-degree murder charges the prosecution was pushing. The deliberations were apparently messy, including one juror allegedly using homophobic slurs. After the mistrial, additional charges were dropped on Melly in October 2023 for witness tampering. Prosecutors claimed that he had used Blood's gang members to prevent his ex-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton, and her mother, Felicia Holmes, from testifying. This allegedly involved phone calls and letters coordinated through another inmate named Terrence Mathis, with about 60 calls between Mathis and YNW Bortland using coded language to discuss keeping the witnesses from showing up. The defense has fought these witness tampering allegations, arguing during the bail hearing that they were conveniently timed to coincide with previous bail requests and that they lacked legal merit because Mariah Hamilton was never actually legally required to testify at Melly's trial. Another controversial aspect of the case involves Florida's death penalty law, which the prosecution is trying to use against Melly. In 2023, Florida changed its law to allow death sentences with an 8-4 jury recommendation, moving away from requiring unanimity. This change has raised constitutional concerns and could potentially affect Melly's case if he gets convicted in the retrial. Throughout his bid, Melly has maintained his innocence, though he's generally avoided making detailed public statements about the case. His music, particularly the track Murder on My Mind, released before the actual murders, has been put under the microscope for its violent content, with prosecutors even trying to use the lyrics against him in court.
Shit, I was in these apartments at first in Orangewood, and I moved to like Whisper Palm, some little like Mexican houses.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Interestingly, in a 2019 interview right after getting out from a previous jail stint, Melly revealed that he had written Murder on My Mind while locked up.
But
So Murder on My Mind, when did you write that and what was going on in your head when you wrote it?
first time I got locked up.
You wrote it while you were in jail?
Yeah. But I ain't trying to even talk about that either though.
It was too crazy?
Yeah, it wasn't really, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I made it when I was locked up though.
Mm-hmm. And then what, you got out for a little while and you were able to record it and put it out?
Yeah.
And then you went in again because they were mad about the song?
Yeah.
Melly also spoke about losing hope during his incarceration and how his faith helped him push through.
When you were in jail, did you feel like, were you ever at a point where you felt like all hope was lost?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. when I first got locked up, cause I ain't know what they was gonna do. I ain't know. I thought, damn. I was so young, I ain't know. I was like, damn. This before I made Murder on My Mind. I was like, man, hell nah. They can give me a year and some extra time and shit. Like, damn, they gonna forget about my ass.
With the retrial now set for September 10th, 2025, all eyes are on the bail decision expected in the coming days. If granted full bail, Melly would get his first taste of freedom since February 2019, though under strict conditions. If denied, he'll stay locked down for at least another 4 months until the retrial kicks off. The artist and the aftermath. Born Jamel Maurice Demons on May 1st, 1999 in Gifford, Florida, YNW. Melly came up in tough circumstances. Though he's kept it pretty low-key about his upbringing in interviews, the small town of Gifford, located about an hour from Orlando, isn't exactly known for producing stars. In his own words, nobody make it out of there. Nobody even knows about it, I don't feel like. Melly's musical journey started early, around the 8th grade, when he began creating tracks with basic equipment. In an interview, he described his first recording setup as simply a mic with a hanger in front of that bitch with a wig cap on it in his homie's room. Despite the humble beginnings, Melly felt an immediate connection to making music, saying, I was always like making sure my craft was perfect. You know what I'm saying? Always. I had to stay on it. His musical influences show an artist with diverse tastes beyond what many might expect from a trap or drill rapper. While he shouted out artists like Lil Wayne, Future, and Young Thug, he also expressed love for artists like Michael Jackson, Ed Sheeran, Adele, and U2, revealing a broader musical palette that would later influence his melodic approach to rap.
I started rapping in 8th grade. I was listening like Michael Jackson, Lil Wayne, U2, Chris Brown, Lil Ed Sheeran.
Lil Ed Sheeran.
You know what I'm saying? I think he was out there. No, I don't know.
Melly's unique style and image initially made him stand out in his high school environment. As he put it, at first it was weird, like everybody thought I was weird. But then I started dressing, like different from everybody, but doing other things. They liked my sound, they liked the way I dressed, you know what I'm saying? His big break came with the drop of Murder on My Mind in March 2017, a track that would later take on eerie significance given the murder charges that followed. The song showcases Melly's distinctive melodic style, with sung vocals that hit different from the more aggressive delivery common in Florida's rap scene at the time. While Murder on My Mind remains his biggest hit, YNW Melly continued to build his catalog with projects like his debut commercial mixtape I Am You 2018 and We All Shine 2019. The latter project included the track Mixed Personalities featuring Kanye West, a high-profile collab that signaled Melly's rising status in the industry just before his arrest. In a 2019 interview, Melly described working with Kanye as awesome and super mega awesome cool, indicating they had recorded multiple songs together beyond just Mixed Personalities. When asked about the unusual robot imagery in the music video, Melly explained it represented his multiple personalities.
Basically, it's just weird. It's basically just different, like 3 heads, 3 different personalities.
This theme of multiple personalities is one that Melly has pushed throughout his career. In the same interview, he claimed to have 6 distinct personalities, though he would only reveal 3: Melly, Melvin, and Marcus. He described Melvin as someone who don't play no games and is confrontational, while Marcus represents the love side of his personality and comes out when Melly is trying to blend in as a regular person.
How many personalities do you have?
6.
6?
Yeah.
What are the 6?
I can only reveal 3.
While some have speculated that these personality references might be setting up a potential insanity defense, it's worth noting that Melly was talking about his personalities well before his arrest for murder. It appears to be a genuine part of his artistic persona and possibly his self-identity. Melly's incarceration since February 2019 has significantly impacted his career trajectory, though his music has continued to drop sporadically. His debut studio album, Melly vs. Melvin, was released in November 2019 while he was behind bars, and a follow-up album titled Just a Matter of Slime dropped in August 2021. These releases were presumably compiled from recordings completed before his arrest or during brief periods of freedom. When asked what separates him from other Florida rappers, Melly emphasized his uniqueness. I ain't trying to be like nobody else. You can tell I'm from Florida, but you can't compare me to nobody. He specifically distinguished himself from what he called Kodak Black Kids, referring to the wave of artists following in the footsteps of another prominent Florida rapper.
Like them niggas Kodak Black kids.
You said what?
They Kodak Black kids. I'm just different. I got my own shit going on.
You
My
do.
own thing,
Sonically,
you
for
feel me?
sure.
I ain't trying to be like nobody else. You could tell I'm from Florida, but you can't, you know what I'm saying? You can't compare me to nobody. unless you compare me career-wise with Kodak.
As of May 10th, 2025, YNW Melly has spent over 6 years in the pen without being convicted. This crazy long pre-trial confinement has raised questions about the constitutional right to a speedy trial, though the complex nature of capital cases and the COVID-19 pandemic have contributed to some of these delays. The conditions of his confinement have reportedly been brutal. During the bail hearing, his attorneys hinted at him being housed in 23 and 1-inch conditions, a term referring to 23 hours of lockdown with only 1 hour of time outside the cell per day. Though the judge didn't allow this to be entered as evidence without testimony, it's consistent with how high-profile inmates are often held. If Melly gets bail, his defense team has outlined plans for him to stay, with family members under strict supervision that would include GPS monitoring and 24-hour security personnel. His record label has reportedly agreed to cover the cost of any monetary bond that might be imposed, indicating they still see him as a valuable asset despite his lengthy absence from the rap game. The possibility of YNW Melly touching road on bail has generated mad excitement among his fan base. Reports from May 6, 8, 2025 flooded social media with speculation about his imminent freedom. Several legit hip-hop media outlets, including XXL Magazine and Hip Hop DX, published articles indicating that a decision on his bail request was expected to drop soon. On May 8, 2025, things got confusing when accounts like at Say Cheese DGTL posted that Melly had secured a $500,000 bond for one of 6 charges, suggesting he was making progress toward getting out. However, later clarifications explained that this wouldn't actually get him out unless bonds were granted for all charges. If Melly gets out on bail, it would be his first taste of freedom since February 2019. During that time, the hip-hop landscape has changed dramatically, with many of his peers blowing up or falling off. The world itself has transformed through the COVID-19 pandemic, technological advances, and cultural shifts, all developments that Melly has experienced only through the filter of being locked down. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.